What's up, everybody? It looks like we are live. We'll let everybody let everybody kind of get in here. The date is first of all, welcome everybody to Status Coup. The date is Tuesday, December 13th in this year of our Lord 2022. I am reporting to you live from Los Angeles, California, in the Corporations of America. Another lovely day in the oligarchy. We got a fun show for you today. We're going to be talking about, first, smash the like button. Don't just push it, smash it. Smash it. Smash it gently. Gentle smash. But you gotta show it who's boss. You know, sometimes you push that like button and it goes, oh, we're not so sure. We don't think you really like this. We're gonna just not show this like, huh? Algorithm said so. And you gotta be like, nope, smash. That's what you gotta do. But we're gonna be talking about Bernie Sanders trying to bring a Yemen war powers resolution to the floor, and it's being resisted by Joe Biden. That's going on live. That's like happening right now. This is breaking stuff. Then we're going to talk about the marriage equality bill, and then we're going to be talking about Ron DeSantis. But we're going to get to our guest right away because he is on the beat covering this right now. So please welcome from the Intercept, Ryan Grimm. Ryan, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. How you guys doing?
Good, good, good. So we'll jump right into it. I know you're on a time crunch here, so I want to talk about Yemen first, and then if we have time, I'd like to talk about the rail strike too, but that'll be time dependent. So I want to do Yemen first. But so Bernie Sanders, you published this piece last week in the Intercept. Bernie Sanders to bring Yemen war powers resolution to the floor as soon as next week. You published that last week. So is today the final day? Like where are we at here?
Yes, because the War Powers Act creates this unique procedure for anything war related that allows any member of the Senate to go through a process that allows them to put a war powers resolution on the floor that restricts the administration's war making ability without having to get over a filibuster and without needing the permission of a committee and without needing the permission of the leadership. And so Senator Sanders, over the past year plus, went through the procedures that he needed to do in order to get it to the floor. Because Republicans took over the House and they will take it over in January, a lot of groups on the outside were pushing Sanders to make sure that he did this before before Republicans took over. Do this in the lame duck, because the Republican leadership, even though you have a sizable, a growing number of kind of whatever you would call them Republicans who are anti-war, you don't have leadership that is anti-war, and so the House doesn't have the same procedures. Paul Ryan changed them; they haven't really been changed back, and so it would be very difficult, not impossible, but difficult to get it on the floor with Republicans in control of the House of Representatives. Just difficult enough with Democrats in control of the House of Representatives. So they wanted to push it now. But as you mentioned, the White House has been now whipping against it throughout the day and urging Democratic senators who voted previously for this under Trump to flip and vote no. And they've even privately threatened to veto. Although Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about my reporting from earlier today, and she wouldn't comment on whether or not Biden would veto it. But I obtained the talking points that they've been circulating privately around the Senate that say that the quote unquote staff would recommend a veto, and that's going back to the Bush administration and before. That's how the White House phrases a veto threat, so that if he ends up signing it, he didn't kind of get back down. He just didn't take the advice of his staff. So basically, they are threatening a veto.
What is their rationale behind this? Like what are they
It's
like? How are
it's
they
so
justifying this?
it's so cockamamie, and maybe I can even pull it up and read some of it. But their basic argument is that you have to vote against this war powers resolution for peace. Like the anti-war vote is this.
I feel
So
like there's a
here,
meme about that somewhere. I feel like
yes,
there's a meme that the whole war is peace thing. We were supposed to see through that a long
yeah,
time ago.
and so here's a little bit of it. The situation is still fragile, and our diplomatic efforts are ongoing. The most intense diplomacy right now is directly between the Houthis and KSA, which is what we've always wanted, and they are making progress, but it's far from done. A vote on this resolution risks undermining those efforts. The president followed through on his pledge to end support for Saudi-led offensive operations. This is another fundamental difference from when you considered this resolution in 2019. We have halted all sales of offensive munitions. And I'll read one more. We know that this is a difficult decision to change a vote, but the circumstances are fundamentally different than they were in 2019, and a vote would undermine the possibility that we can finally bring an end to this war and the humanitarian suffering of the people of Yemen. So that's from the Biden administration's talking points to the Senate of why people should flip their vote. And in the name of peace, vote to allow the U.S. to continue to support Saudi Arabia. If you were going to try to make sense of that, and I think they probably didn't want to put this down on paper, what they might be trying to say is this: the Houthis have grown in strength from a small tribe that wasn't expected to even be able to take Sana'a in 2015 to now controlling most of the country, and now being able to launch strikes like into Saudi Arabia. And in order to get Saudi Arabia to agree to a permanent peace with the Houthis, Saudi Arabia would want to feel like the Houthis were still somewhat in check, that they would be nervous that so Biden might be arguing here that if you take out this last leg of support for Saudi Arabia's war efforts, the Houthis get too strong, and then the Saudis will be too humiliated or something to make a deal with them. That's the best sense that I can make of that rationale from the White House. Chris Murphy was on Mehdi Hassan's show today, and Murphy's been hot and cold on this issue. He's been great at times, and then at other times he has not. Today, he said, "Look, we have already restricted 90 to 95% of support for Saudi's war in Yemen. This takes away the last 5%. And he's like, I think we need to take away the last 5%. He said Saudi Arabia has not shown any seriousness in ending this war. So to have Chris Murphy say he's supporting Bernie Sanders' resolution was a big shot in the arm for it.
So I know Bernie says that he thinks that the votes are there. Do you echo that? Do you think that the votes are there, that this
I don't know.
pass?
I don't know what he's basing that on. I have not heard from any of the groups that they are confident in their whip count. I have not heard from any of them that they have gotten a reliable whip count from Sanders. I've heard that Mike Lee is going to be a yes, and if Mike Lee gets to yes, then you could have maybe 10 Republicans, and then if you can pull together still 40 Democrats or so, you could get back to 50. But with the White House whipping against it, I think there's so many Democrats who just don't care enough about this issue that if they can build some capital with the White House just to do whatever the White House wants, and then in exchange get whatever they're trying to get out of the White House for their home state, or whatever politics we don't know about that's going on behind the scenes, I could see a decent number of Democrats who voted for it in 2019 flipping their vote, unless they think enough people are watching, because they're not going to want to get you don't want to be called a flip-flopper, and B, you don't want to get called somebody who supports this horrifying 7-year-long war in Yemen, waged by Saudi Arabia, the butcher of Khashoggi, teaming up with Russia in the war against Ukraine, allied with Trump, like jacking up gas prices, run by a lunatic, like that. It's not going to be an easy vote for them yet. Under pressure from the White House, I could see a decent number of them flipping. So we'll see. This is one of those votes I don't know how it'll come out.
So, what is kind of like pressing right now? I mean, you mentioned there is like a deadline that we're up against like today. So what is that exactly? Is this the deadline for the vote, or are they going to have the vote, or like?
Yeah, today the vote will be at 7 p.m. today. Okay. The only deadline is the lame duck. Like they got to get it done before January 3rd, I guess, is when the new Congress comes in, and they're going out for Christmas recess soon. So it's basically do or die now, because it's December 13th, so got to do it soon. Now there was a ceasefire. There was a ceasefire that has been in effect. It expired October 1st, but hostilities have not resumed, and it's been in effect for maybe 9 months now. And so that the administration is also using that. They're saying, what do you need to do this for? Relax. There's a ceasefire. We're good here. Like, we're moving toward a permanent truce. So why
don't we move towards it faster?
Seems
So
like
let's move towards it faster. No. We might want a war again because war is peace.
just
Remember? Like, oh, okay.
war is peace. Yeah,
Wow, it is
exactly.
something. So, well, what happens if we don't get the vote tonight? Does it just is it just completely, or can they bring it again before the lame duck is over, or will this just kind of fall by the wayside then?
If it goes down, if it wins tonight, more than 50 votes because it doesn't need 60, then it goes over to the House, and then you have to pressure House leadership. Peter DeFazio is the champion of it over there, but it has the support of normie Dems like Adam Schiff,
Wow.
people who have to draw a lot of water over in the House Democratic Caucus. So, and DeFazio is retiring. He'd probably like to see this as one of the last things he does. So if it passes, then the fight moves over to the House. If it fails, that's it. Then they'll pick it up again next year, and then it becomes a question of whether kind of the crazies like Marjorie Taylor Greene can like put enough pressure on their leadership to allow a vote. And because at that point, the House progressives are, they don't have a whole lot of pull with Kevin McCarthy, believe it or not.
Yeah. So we'll find out in a few hours. You're talking 7 Eastern, right?
Yeah.
We're just a few hours away here. So
I think Bernie's going to speak at 6:15 if people want to set their C-SPAN clocks.
Oh, okay. All right. So Bernie will be talking in about an hour.
Yeah, it should be fiery because he knows that the White House has been fighting him on this.
Well, last question on this, and then I'd like to switch over to the railroad strike. Is this in any way similar to Ro Khanna's? I mean, he had a resolution to end the conflict in Yemen too. Is this mirroring that, or?
Yeah, so he led that one in 2019, and with Sanders as the Senate lead. So yes, it's basically the same thing. And Khanna's a supporter on the House of DeFazio's resolution, but Khanna's only been in office since 2016. So if somebody more senior feels like they want to do it, they kind of get dibs.
Well, we will see what happens. And it looks like, are you in DC? You kind of look like you're in DC.
Yeah, this is the Capitol Press Gallery.
Oh, nice. So the Wi-Fi is not too shabby. That's good.
It's good stuff.
I had to live stream from the Senate building once. It was in a movement for net neutrality. It was in 2019, and I was a little worried. I bought the extra data you can get, just to be safe. But who knows? Maybe the data in there would have held up. I'll never know for sure. But yeah. So
it's working fine.
Good. So let's go over to the rail strike. Now, you had a perspective that frustrated some folks.
Sure did.
I'm not gonna lie, I was one of them, to tell you the truth. But I'll hand it over to you first. So what, my understanding is that your perspective was, basically what happened here was they did the vote to crush the strike, which is, that goes back to the Railroad Act of 1926 that allows the president to get involved and crush the strike. And instead of wanting to crush the strike in favor of the workers and forcing the railroad barons to say, hey, give them what they want, they did the opposite. It was a pro-railroad baron thing. And then they decoupled the sick days, which was only 7 sick days, not 15. They decoupled that from the bill, voted on it separately, and we all kind of knew it was likely to fail in the Senate. And then, of course, it did. Now well, let me hand it over to you. I don't want to say what your position is, but you published something basically saying that that's how people wanted them to vote, for crushing the strike. So if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, the whole question comes down to whether or not you believed, whether or not they felt like it was worth holding a vote in the Senate. And the unions, including these rank and file caucuses of leftist unions, wanted a vote in the Senate. Like they wanted that vote. They thought that they had enough of a shot that it was worth taking a shot.
Do you mean on the sick days? When you say wanted to vote, you mean on the sick? Okay,
right.
All right.
Wanted to vote on the sick days. The only way you get that vote is if you get it out of the House and over there with the sick days attached, which they got. Now, what the other thing I have said is that, like, I get the optics. Like, you'd rather have done basically what Rashida Tlaib did, which is like vote no, so you're not on record supporting this, like, the first vote, which is to impose the contract, followed by the second vote, which adds the sick days. The problem with doing that as a full caucus, like a handful of people can do that. If you do that as a full caucus, then you start playing these games, because they wanted both the unions and the progressives wanted both to pass so that the Senate could vote on them. And so you go into, let's say you want to be clever, and you win the vote on the 7-day sick days. Pelosi says, okay, you can have that vote. But in order to have that vote, you have to first get past the original contract. So let's say you go out there and you're like, well, there's going to be plenty of Republican support for this. So we can vote no. We can take a principled no vote. And then when it comes to sick days, we'll vote yes. What happens if Republicans are playing games too? And they say, look, we don't want this 7-day sick day vote. We don't want them. We don't want to put the Senate Republicans on record. We don't want to be on record. So if you're playing games here, we're gonna vote no on this TA, on this tentative agreement. And then it goes down. So now you've taken the principled vote, and it's gone down. But now you don't get the sick day vote, and people would say, okay, well, that's awesome. Now there's going to be a strike.
Yeah.
Except no, there isn't going to be a strike.
Why?
Because then Pelosi is like, okay, we had an agreement. This was how we were going to get a 6-day vote. You guys didn't stick by the agreement. Now we're not going to do a sick day vote. We're putting the original agreement back on the floor, and that's it. And then it's going straight over to the Senate. And guess what Republicans are going to do that time? They're going to do exactly what they did, which is overwhelmingly support.
And then we have the same result anyway. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's like strategically the same thing happened.
No, strategically the same thing didn't happen, because they got a full day of attention on the sick day in the House fight, a day leading up to that. All of this coverage on CNN and New York Times and elsewhere about the sick days. Then as it goes over to the Senate, they get a vote there. They get another day of national coverage, and they also felt like they had a shot. Like their whip count going in that day was 7. They ended up getting 6. A couple weeks before that, they felt like they were at 10 or 11 Republican votes, and they weren't sure where Manchin was. So there's been a lot of people who are like, you can't get, Republicans are bad. You can't get them to support railroad workers. Most railroad workers are Republicans. And a lot of Republicans now are doing all of this pro-worker rhetoric. So I don't think it's as naive as people say for them to believe that they had a shot. They spent a week in November lobbying primarily Senate Republicans, going office to office. And they came out of that week believing that they had a shot at 10 to 11 Republican votes in the Senate. A lot of people are like, no way, you guys are idiots. That's no chance. You never had that chance. But I think if it's your sick days on the line, and you think that after all of the work you've done, you have a shot, even if it's a 2% shot, you're going to take it. And I think part of what was going on here is that a lot of outside observers wanted a titanic clash between kind of capital and labor here. Because especially when you see the railroads, you're like, oh, this is systemic. Like this is really going to bring all of the issues that we have been fighting for to the fore. And it's going to put so much pressure on the capitalist class that we're going to be able to like really wage this. But the railroad workers are like, we want 7 sick days.
Well, but I don't think it's about wanting to see a clash as much as it's about, this is what has to be
there's
done.
Nothing wrong with wanting to see a clash. Like,
no. I understand what you're saying, but it's not like it. Just to be clear, it's not like this is some game where it's like, oh, we're going to see a clash. It's more like this is what has to be done. And here's where I think a lot of people disagree with you, myself being among them. I mean, you're making it out like, oh, well, they thought there was a chance. It's not like all the workers had this monolithic point of view. I mean, I interviewed a railroad worker who didn't agree with your assessment, who didn't agree with your strategy. And, 4 unions were totally against this agreement.
Not my strategy, but yeah.
What you were reporting. I understand. But it's like, there's plenty of workers who wouldn't agree with that. It's not like it's some monolithic thing. And the other thing where you're talking about them being naive, I don't know anyone who was saying that. I don't think anyone was blaming the workers. I mean, I'm sure if you look at some
No, there are
random.
a lot of people who were saying if the workers believed that they had a shot in the Senate, and that if this was what they wanted, uh, they should have been told by like the squad and by Bernie that no, like you don't have a shot. You should not do this. Like there's plenty of people out there that are saying that, and that actually what the progressives wanted was to use the workers as like cover because they just wanted to vote to crush the strike. That's their theory, and that
I think
actually the progressives should have told the workers, no, you don't have a shot. We're just voting this down. We're not playing any games here with trying to get 6 days at the end. Biden has screwed you. He sent the thing over here. We're just voting it down. We're done.
I mean, I don't think it's a matter of using the workers as cover as much as just they don't want to rattle any cages. So they're just kind of saying, oh, well, we're just going to do this. And some people at leadership said it's okay. And it's like at the end of the day, I mean, I think we'd all be so much better off if they didn't go to crush the strike.
I mean, they disagree. Like, and if mean, you could talk to some folks in RWU or over at BMWED Rank and File United.
Hmm.
Like they think compared to where they were on Monday, the Monday when Biden sent that agreement over, to where they are now, like a rally today outside the Capitol that had Bernie Sanders, Chewy Garcia, Rashida Tlaib, Andy Levin, Don Payne, Jamal Bowman, like a show of support for railroad workers, and a show of like energy from their leadership, because now the leadership is kind of following the rank and file. So you wouldn't have seen that before, and so they feel like their chance of getting executive action out of the White House is much greater as a result of the fight that they put up and the national attention that they drew, and that once Biden had screwed them by sending it over to the House, that uh, there, there were bad options and like less bad options.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, when you say they, it's not like there's this monolithic perspective from workers. I mean, we could
Yeah,
talk
not
to a bunch of
true.
people from RWU. We'd find a little bit of everything. We'd find some people who I'm sure agree with your perspective, some people who agree with mine. And, I think we'll just have to agree to
Right,
disagree on that one.
right.
So let's talk about where we're at now then, because I know you only got a little bit of time. So I want to get some stuff in on where we're at now. To my understanding, that Bernie Sanders letter, which I read, I'm sure you read it, they didn't list one nor two. They listed three ways where we could still get these sick days in. One
Hmm.
via the Secretary of Transportation, one via labor, and one via, of course, the most obvious, an executive order from Biden. You've been covering some stuff on the
Hmm.
ground today. So fill me in on what you found there.
Right, and so some of the stuff that they're pushing on the transportation department is to say, hey, Mayor Pete, like there are health and safety issues here that you can intervene on. So on the one hand, there's federal contractor employee rights, like where Biden could try to like say that the train workers are railroad workers are employees of federal contractors, and so therefore are subject to this executive order, which they've been carved out of in the past. I'm putting them in there. Like that's one. That obviously would get challenged in court. Well, maybe it wins, maybe it doesn't win. The railroads have said, look at the Department of Transportation too, because there are all sorts of regulations that say that if businesses are implementing personnel policies that are putting people's health and safety at risk, uh, not just the workers, but the health and safety of people who are on the tracks. And like one worker made a great point at the rally today. It's like when you cut down the number of staff on a 5 mile train to like less than two,
Yeah.
like who's going to be the staff that's like looking out and like whistling for the kids that are on the tracks? It's like he's like, you guys don't understand how often that happens. Like kids play on railroad tracks, and like very often it has to be staff on the train that are like warning them, blowing that whistle, like get off the tracks. And so that's just like one tiny example of the way that their staffing decisions put not just the lives of workers at risk, which is important enough, but also the lives of the public at risk. And so the Department of Transportation, as far as they understand it, and as far as they argue it, has jurisdiction to come in and push some reforms of these policies. There are also a number of other policy changes that they're trying to get the administration to force onto the railroads that aren't as kind of easy to understand as sick days, but for many railroaders are just as important, if not even some of them more important. And so they're trying to use this space and this capital, because they now captured the attention of the White House, because the White House knows that they really took it on the chin on this one, to try to say, like, here are the things you can do if you don't want to continue to be ridiculed when you call yourself the most pro-labor president in history.
So how likely do you think it is that something's going to happen? Like how likely do you
So
think an executive order is?
Chuy Garcia told me today he expects that there will be executive action. I don't think it will be a direct order of 7 sick days, because I think the railroads are nervous about putting all their eggs in a basket that could be overturned by a court. I think they want a much broader set of wins, so that if they throw that out, that they still have other wins that can translate into sick days. So in other words, every concession that they can get out of the White House, then they go back to their carriers and say, look, here's what we now can legally do. We want sick days. And that lets them kind of rebargain and say, let different quid pro quos about the different concessions. So they want either some type of legislative vehicle that the courts can't overturn, or they want something that really forces the carriers to implement the sick days in a way that judges can't overthrow. So I'm still reporting out a lot of the details of it, but they do feel like they have space right now, that the White House wants to do something for them so they can kind of unembarrass themselves.
So like, just to keep it simple, like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being nothing's going to happen, 10 being we're going to see some amount of a victory here, where would you say?
I think 7, that they get something. So
Fair enough.
that they get something non-trivial. Yeah.
So one final question for you, and thank you so much for making some time for this today, and thanks for being on the beat today and tonight, and we'll see what happens here. Um, I think part of the reason a lot of people had some very strong reactions to your take on the railroad strike is because, right, if we're being honest here, you kind of have a track record that when it comes to the squad, it's a bit of a sacred cow for you. You don't seem to be willing to criticize them, even at times when it's necessary. So, do you think that it is a problem that they're really not behaving as a block? Because that's my criticism of them. They're not working as a block, they're not voting as a block. And if they don't start doing that, they're not wielding what influence they do have. I'm not asking them to change all 434 members, but I am asking them to work as a block so that they can kind of have influence. Would you
I,
agree
I
with
do
that?
I do think that the kind of inability uh, to work as a block has undermined uh, their relationship kind of with the online left, and also has probably undermined some of the influence they could have internally, because internally their enemies still see them as operating as a block, and but they don't. So they kind of get the worst of both worlds. So I do think that is reasonable. And yeah, I, I know that people like think that about me, but like, if there's something that is like, but I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna stop reporting like what's happening in Congress, because I think a lot of people, like, why would people know the ins and outs of the Railway Labor Act,
Sure.
know exactly what kind of lobbying strategies rank and file labor caucuses are employing? Like, nobody's born knowing these things. I think we get too caught up in, like, what do I personally think about this particular strategy. Like, a lot of people want to go there rather than just have me tell them, here is why, from their perspective, they are doing this thing. And this might be useful for you to know, so you can argue against them. And a lot of people are like, well, you say that they're dumb, say that they're sellouts, say that they're wrong. I'm like,
I'm not asking you to do any
yes,
of that.
no, not
Yeah.
you, no, not you, yeah. So yeah, it's but what it's fine. It comes with the territory. I love my job. It's fine. You know.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see what happens here, and thank you so much for being able to stop by today, and we'll see I mean. We're gonna know more in about an hour and a half here. So thanks for being on the beat, and thanks for tuning in from the DC library or wherever it is you're at. I was waiting for someone to come over and yell at you. I'm glad it never happened. So yeah, safe travels. Thanks for being here, and feel
Yeah.
free to let everyone know where to follow you.
Oh, for sure. If over at the Intercept, or you read my newsletter, Bad News, over at Substack. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for doing this. All right. Cheers.
You got it.
All right, that was Ryan Grimm with some take on what's going on with the Yemen bill, and we'll find out in about an hour and a half. I hope they get it through. How sad is that Joe Biden and they're railing against that during the holiday season, no less. They're just like, guys, we might want a war. There's a ceasefire, but we might want a war. So let's all war. Let me go to some super chat. I know. Look, I think some of you wanted some stuff from Ryan specifically. I'm sorry we did not have time to get to questions. He had a limited time crunch, and he was in. I think it did look like he was in a freaking DC library. Ryan was tuning in from the Senate library. He had a blanket over his head trying to be incognito. I appreciate him coming on. So let me get to some super chats. And for those of you who had ones for Ryan, I'm sorry, but we just weren't able to get to that. I'll read them anyway. But yeah. Cafe Garrett, what's up? Thank you so much for your super chat contribution. You say, I'll start. Thank you for starting. And I hope all is well, Kat. I hope you're doing awesome. And thank you so much for everything and anything and everything. Chris, what's up, my man? What's up, Chris Garrett? I'll second the super chat motion. Observer, you say great rail strike coverage, Ryan. Observer, you say that. Yeah, I disagree with the strategy, but it's important we talk these things out. But Observer says great rail strike coverage, Ryan. Ava Lindgren, you say Democrats should not have taken a vote against the railroad workers, period. That's what I think. I think it'd be better if they just didn't. They could have just not went to crush the strike. Henry Kajawa, seems to me the Supreme Court and the Senate says serve no constructive purpose these days. No argument from me. I think if both of those things could go away, we would be better off. I think that I mean, there's really no reason for the Senate when you think about it, other than to make, other than to like make. Anyway, there's no reason for the Senate. And yeah, the Supreme Court. We'll get more into that in a second here. Observer, you say, Ryan, why did the other rail unions pick garbage arbitrators for the PEB? Ryan, of course, is not here to answer that. Unfortunately, Observer. Observer, the idea you're going to beat corporate lobbyists at parliamentary Jedi mind tricks is the height of insanity. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. And again, it's like you can't, and again, that's where I do disagree with the stuff he was putting out there that, people were going, oh no, this is the strategy. Like, well, not all rail workers feel that way. It's not some monolithic thing. And, I didn't, I don't know what all he was pointing to there. We didn't have time to dive into all the nitty gritty, but I never saw anyone saying the workers were naive. I think it was more they were angry at the system. They were angry at what Congress did and what the Biden administration did. And they were angry that they were going to crush the strike. That's what I was angry about. I would never say, oh, the workers were naive. If you're taking it out on the workers in any way whatsoever, you're absolutely wrong. But, I think most of the frustrations from most of the people who were talking about this was where it should have been, which is on the Biden administration, on the Congress, and on the Senate. That's where the frustration belongs. So, yeah, there we go. And Jim Bassett, the rail company made $180 billion in profit last year, and the 15 days of sick time would have cost 3% of that. Yep. It's completely immoral how union workers are treated. Abso-freaking-lutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Thank you for that, Jim Bassett. All right, we'll get to some more super chats here as they come in. Which smash the like button. Smash Colin, do the thing. There it is. Colin on the ones and twos, ladies and gentlemen. Smash the like button. Don't just push it. You gotta smash it. You gotta smash it. Smash it. And of course, do leave your super chat. We'll be talking it up more. So let's go to the marriage equality bill. This is a little bit of man. All right. So I'm not looking forward to talking about this. Why? Because I have to. I mean, obviously, this is a great. I mean, I'm glad this is here, but unfortunately, I talked to a lawyer friend of mine, and I kind of gotta be the man. I gotta report here and be the Debbie Downer Magoo a little bit. So let's go to the ABC article, Colin. Before this is what happens when it's an online news show. Sometimes you gotta be like, well, here, all right, Biden to sign historic same-sex marriage bill at White House. All right. President Joe Biden on Tuesday signed legislation protecting same-sex and interracial marriage. Awesome. Thousands of people gathered on the White House South Lawn to commemorate the Respect for Marriage Act becoming law. Today is a good day, Biden said as he took the podium after Vice President Kamala Harris. Rumor has it Joe Biden even knew where he was. A day America takes a vital step towards equality for liberty and justice, not just for some, but for everyone, toward creating a nation where decency, dignity. I poke fun at Joe Biden for messing up his words, and then here I go messing up my words, reading a Joe Biden quote. That's some irony. I gotta wear that. I gotta own it. I just did it. Towards creating a nation where decency, dignity, and love are recognized, honored, and protected. Come on, Jack. You know the thing, man. So this is great. This is wonderful. Now, Ron, why are you going to be Debbie Downer Magoo over here? Like, what the heck? Well, because here's the thing. Here's the thing, folks. The Supreme Court, which is just a cast of villains. That's all the Supreme Court is. It's just a cast of villains. The Supreme Court is to the law what like instant ramen is to food. Which, by the way, instant ramen is delicious and it's a special treat and it's a vice, but it's technically not food. It's some places that's literally not considered food. There's studies out there. Your body doesn't even actually digest it. Now, for me, it is kind of a comfort food. I basically lived on that for years on the road. So sometimes I just kind of crave it. I know it's not good for me, but there's a lot of vices out there. It's no worse for you than diet soda, I tell myself. So what I force myself to do is I force myself that if I'm going to get some instant ramen, I have to buy it from the bodega because it's more expensive. Because I'm like, dude, this is an indulgence tax that you. I mean, at the grocery store, they're like what 20 cents or so. They might be more now because everything's freaking more. Which, by the way, that's because we're making a monopoly. Anyway, it's a little more now, but it's still pretty freaking. But at the bodega, it's like $1. Which is it's definitely less than $1 for one of those. But I'm like, I gotta spend $1. This is a freaking vice. I gotta spend the whole dollar like a champ. So anyway, the Supreme Court, it has nothing to do with the law. They're just a bunch of religious extremists. The whole thing needs to be abolished. When I say that, I'm not suggesting that we have no court at any federal level. I'm suggesting that we replace it with something else that isn't a freaking political football. That isn't some lifetime appointment. And by the way, most of the people on the Supreme Court, who are some of the most powerful people over our laws in the freaking world, they're not even like supported by the majority of Americans because they were put in place by presidents most Americans didn't vote for. Like most of the Supreme Court was put in there by Bush, who did not win the popular vote, and Trump, who did not win the popular vote. So the Supreme Court does not reflect public opinion in any way whatsoever. And yet they have more power than anything. And so, anyway, here's how the Supreme Court could screw this over. They could overturn this thing in 3 different ways. One, they could interpret it narrowly. Now, I'm not exactly sure how they would pull that off. Like, it's pretty much like it protects It protects same-sex marriage and interracial marriage. Like, boom. I think that's pretty straightforward. But who knows what mental gymnastics they'll do. They could interpret it a certain way to discount it. Two, they could indicate that it conflicts with another law, which I'm sure they're going to try to do. Or three, they could just declare it unconstitutional in whole or in part. Now, it'd be hard for them to do that. Doesn't mean they're not going to try. But I think, and again, not a lawyer, but I think it'd be hard for them to do that because the reason we got same-sex marriage in the first place was that the Supreme Court decided it was unconstitutional to not allow it. So it'd be hard for them to say, oh, but this thing protecting it's unconstitutional. Not saying they're not going to try. Of course they'll frickin' try. Not saying they might not be able to pull out some bullshit. They might be able to. And it's, it's still just the denied of them or whatever. So who knows? But yeah, I talked to a buddy of mine. I have a buddy. He's an attorney. He's very well versed in law, and we talk politics a lot. We agree on a lot of things. We have a couple things we see differently, mostly strategic things. You know what I mean? It's like we're both lefties. It's just strategy wise. Sometimes he yins and I yank, and that's okay. It's important that we talk to each other. That's what I think. But he's a lawyer, so usually all of our conversations, eventually it just comes back to the Supreme Court is going to destroy our young and eat our souls. And I'm like, shit, man. Damn it, So anyway, that's what he indicated to me. So this is great, but the Supreme Court is going to show up here, folks. They're gonna rear their ugly heads, if you will, the Supreme Court. So this is good news, and I'm really sorry I had to say, hey, this is great news, but here's a little bit of an asterisk and something that we just need to be aware of. Maybe they'll just leave it alone. Maybe they'll just let us have something, but I doubt it. That's not really their jam, the Supreme Court. But the other reason I'm telling you this is when I say things like the Supreme Court should be abolished, this is why I say those things. This is why. Let me know. Drop a super chat. Do you agree? Should the Supreme Court be abolished? What do you think? How about the Senate? Would you go Senate too? I'd go both. What do you think? Let me know. Super chat it up. You know how, and smash the like button. And also, I got to point this out. We will have a Ty show is tonight. Ty's show is tonight. Did we pick a name for that show, Colin? I remember the audience was going to help pick a name. Is Ty's shows? Look at Colin's cat ears. Look at that. Aren't they awesome? I saw Colin's cat, and his cat was behaving like Rudy, that's Colin's cat, thought that Colin was a cat. Because those ears are freaking brilliant. Look at how good they look. You look like you're posing right now. Look at you. Good job, Colin. So does Ty's show have a name yet?
Not yet, at least that I'm aware of, but should by next week.
So tune in and help name Ty's show. Now that happens at 8 p.m. Eastern, right? So
yes, and then if you guys want to stick in, if you guys are like wanting to keep talking in your chat or anything like that, as soon as this live stream ends, YouTube's going to send you all over to that live stream, so you can hit like the notify me button before you leave, or if you want to just chill in that stream and talk while you wait for it to go live, whatever you guys want to do.
And then we have a members call. We have a members call on Thursday. Now that's going to be myself and Tina Desiree Berg. I love those headshots of us right next to each other. We look like we solve crimes together. We look like some like 80s cop show where we like solve crimes together. Put that back up, Colin. I wasn't. We got a members call Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. To join as a member, go to statuscoup.com/join. Look at that. Don't we look like we're just like I'm just like, Tina, we got a call from the office. There's someone rolling around Santa Monica again. They're up to no good. Oh, shnikes. We got to get on that right away. And then we just go in like some kind of car. We're not cops. We're detectives of sorts. I like it. Anyway, all right. So since we're kind of in announcement zone, before we get to the final story of the day, I'll do something quick here. In the digital rights space, folks, we are at Hail Mary time for a couple things. First of all, we're at Hail Mary time for the antitrust vote. Amazon is going to lay off 20,000 people this holiday season because, Jeff Bezos will not be out Scrooged by the United States government, nor will he be out Scrooged by Elon Musk. He is going to hold his own Scrooging. Now, one of the reasons he can do this is because Amazon has pretty much a monopoly, and we got to break that up. And the only way we can do that is antitrust in the digital space. There's 2 antitrust bills sitting around in Congress that we've been promised to vote on for almost pretty much this entire year, just about. I mean, it started before the summer because the campaign started as antitrust summer. We're still going. And those bills start breaking up big tech's monopolistic hold on our app stores and their monopolistic hold on products and services and search results. So go to BidenPromise.us and demand that during the lame duck, these bills be brought to the vote. The votes are there. It'll get through. BidenPromised.us. Again, that is BidenPromised.us. Tell President Biden don't cave to big tech. Now, another thing that we'll be dropping a short video on here in a little bit, net neutrality. Gigi Sohn still has not been appointed to the FCC. Because she has not been appointed to the FCC remains in a 2-2 gridlock without a tie-breaking vote. Now, that tie-breaking vote would get us net neutrality back because Gigi Sohn is a pro-net neutrality FCC appointee. Joe Biden promised a pro-net neutrality FCC appointee. What we found out today via the Washington Post is that 2 conservative outlets spent about $246,000 in Facebook ads against Gigi Sohn's appointment. So there's been a huge right-wing campaign against Gigi Sohn. Why don't they like Gigi Sohn? This is why, I kid you not, she doesn't like Fox News. So Gigi Sohn isn't a fan of Fox News because she has eyes and ears, and they're really mad about that. That will somehow impede on her ability to be an FCC commissioner. She has 30 years of experience. She is completely well-versed in digital rights. She is overqualified. Trump's picks, who had no qualifications whatsoever, they were also terrible on the issues, but not to mention they had no qualifications whatsoever. They were approved in a matter of weeks. It's been over a year. Gigi Sohn still hasn't been approved. Why hasn't she been approved? Well, a combination of things. First of all, a big right-wing campaign against her. Second of all, an indifferent president. Biden doesn't really care that much. He started his campaign with a bunch of Comcast executives. And third of all, a Senate leader who's very compromised by big tech and Chuck Schumer. So go to battleforthenet.com and demand that Gigi Sohn be confirmed before the end of the year. Guys, we're in the 4th quarter. We're past the 2-minute freaking warning. I don't know why I give so many football analogies. I'm actually a hockey guy. But seriously, battleforthenet.com. If Gigi Sohn is not confirmed before the end of the year, we're in the lame duck session. The clock is ticking. If she's not confirmed before the end of the year, her nomination will expire. And it'll have to get re-upped in January, which we're not even guaranteed that's going to happen. So we got to try, folks. We got to be loud. Please, battleforthenet.com and BidenPromise.us. Please sign those petitions. It is a way that we can pressure our elected officials to bring the antitrust bills up to a vote and confirm Gigi Sohn to the FCC. All right, our last story of the day. There's no positive component to this one because this involves Ron DeSantis. Now, I'm not. Those of you who know me, you know how I feel about Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, and I'll keep saying this. I know not everyone agrees with me. I don't care. Ron DeSantis is the most dangerous person in American politics by far. By far. This goes beyond Wall Street Team D, Wall Street Team R. This goes beyond all that. This guy is a competent theocratic fascist to the nth degree. I think if he gets into the White House, he will surpass the Bush administration as far as the damage he will do. And wow. And by the way, this is how it starts. It starts with the normalization of this guy. It starts with, people kind of celebrating him. And by the way, Trump derangement syndrome is at play here because a lot of people, he kind of butts heads with Trump because they're kind of in competition. So a lot of people, they're like, we don't like Trump. So this guy, ha ha ha. Look, I don't like Trump either. I despise Trump just as much as anyone else, but I'm not going to let Donald Trump turn off my critical thinking skills. I'm not going to let him do that. So you know what? Donald Trump is just a narcissist, and he's an incompetent one. Ron DeSantis is a theocratic fascist and a competent one. All right. I'm not going to celebrate Ron DeSantis just because Trump doesn't like him. That's freaking ridiculous. And Ron DeSantis will be infinitely worse than the Trump administration could have dreamed of being, regardless of how many mean tweets are out there. So let's go to what's going on, Colin. Apparently, Ron DeSantis is doing pretty good amidst Republicans. And there's also some indication that he's doing pretty good against Joe Biden, even. So DeSantis, this is according to The Hill, DeSantis tops Trump by 23 points among Republicans in new poll. So that's a significant amount. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis leads former President Trump by 23 points among Republicans in a hypothetical GOP presidential primary, according to a poll released Tuesday. The USA Today Suffolk University poll found that 56% of Republican and Republican-leaning voters prefer DeSantis, while only 33% would support Trump. More than 60% said they want a nominee who will continue Trump's policies, but is not Trump. That's basically any GOP member, really. Trump and the GOP are one and the same. I mean, it's so funny that people try to make it out like Trump was, and by the way, that was so, whenever people were saying stuff like that, like, oh, Trump makes the GOP look terrible. They were our worthy political opponents. No, they're a neo-fascist party. Look at the policies that Republicans promote. They're literally a neo-fascist organization. And you're trying to sugarcoat them because Trump doesn't have any subtlety. Trump was just the GOP minus subtlety. That's all he was. That's all he'll ever be. The GOP minus the subtlety. Now, has that lack of subtlety encouraged some of the most despicable among us? Yes, it has done that. Is that a problem? Yes, it most certainly is. But politically, Trump ain't no different than the GOP. Ron DeSantis would be a hell of a lot more dangerous because he's gonna motivate that same base. All the people that Trump got out of the woodwork, Ron DeSantis will do that exact same thing. He'll just do it a little more slowly and a little more subtly, but it'll be there. It'll be there. If you think that Ron DeSantis, if that guy is to become president, we will have anything resembling normalcy, sorry, you're dreaming. And I'm not going to stop saying how dangerous this freaking guy is, because I can honestly say I've never seen anything this dangerous in my lifetime as far as American politics is concerned. And I don't think many of us have. That's honestly how I feel about Ron DeSantis. Now, there's another thing indicating that he would, Colin, can you pull up that tweet? I think it was like one of the last things I sent you. It was from that Bloomberg reporter that apparently, it's the Laura. Okay, thank you. A poll also found that DeSantis leads Biden 47 to 43% among all voters, and Biden leads Trump 47 to 40. So, man. Now, first of all, we don't know if Biden's going to run or not. I hope he doesn't. I hope Biden's not the nominee. I honestly think if Biden's the nominee, I don't really see him beating anybody. I mean, I could in a rematch, maybe he could beat Trump again. It's tough to say. I hope it's not Biden. I hope it's someone else. We'll see what happens. But DeSantis has even beaten Biden in a poll too. Because again, this guy, I mean, he has a way of he kind of talks, even kind of boring, even where people are like, oh, he's not so bad. No, he's pretty freaking bad. He's pretty freaking bad. Let's go to the video that Jordan tweeted this out. Can we go to that, Colin? I want to watch that video. I've actually not watched the video in its entirety, so I'll do that now. But let's go to that video. I want to watch it.
I think you've continued to see people in these bureaucracies and in this establishment behave in ways that have totally squandered any type of confidence or goodwill that people would have. And our CDC at this point, anything they put out you just assume at this point that it's not worth the paper that it's printed on. And so it's not serving a useful function. It's really serving to advance narratives rather than do evidence-based medicine. And so in Florida, the Surgeon General actually has the ability to convene panels of experts to do various things. And so we thought it was important, particularly me talking with other governors, to say, okay, because CDC will say these things, and then people will think, well, because they're saying it, then we have to do it. And maybe not quite as much anymore because people have lost confidence, but you still see it. We had to fight it with the masking in the schools because the school districts were citing CDC as the reason why they wanted to do it. We had to come and overrule that, but it was difficult because they were being put as an authority, and some people were doing that. So other governors and I have talked about the need to have a panel of experts who can counteract nonsense when it's coming out of these institutions, that are not going to just go along with the flow and follow pre-cooked narratives, but will actually do evidence-based analysis. And so in Florida, we're creating what we're calling the Public Health Integrity Committee. It's a committee of expert researchers that will be able to assess recommendations and guidance related to public health and healthcare, but particularly being able to offer critical assessments of things that bureaucracies like the FDA, CDC, and NIH are doing. We know that there's been a lot of faith destroyed in public health. And I think that it's important that we have folks who people actually can rely on when they're looking to answers and when they're looking for guidance on some of these really, really important issues. The people.
So this is what I'm talking about. Now, a couple things to unpack here. First of all, to clarify, I have a lot of problems with the CDC too. However, my criticisms of the CDC are the complete opposite of Ron DeSantis's criticisms of the CDC. My problem was with the CDC is, a lot of times people call them the capitalism disaster control. Why? Because all too often, especially in the past few years, the CDC has acted in the name of capitalism and not in the name of health. Like when they said, oh, yeah, if you get COVID, you only need to kind of lay low for 5 days. That wasn't based on any science. That was just literally based on them being like, we don't want to shut down the economy too much. That's all it was. I mean, even Fauci confirmed that. He literally said that out loud. And not enough people were like, wow, that's really horrible and messed up. So I got my criticism of the CDC. There's a lot of stuff the CDC does that I don't like. But my reason is they're acting in capitalism first, public health distant second, maybe an afterthought. What Ron DeSantis wants to do, which is totally different. Ron DeSantis wants to just make his own health committee up. He just wants, which who knows what his health committee will consist of. My guess is Matt Gaetz and a Taco Bell wrapper. That's my guess. We'll see what happens. But he wants to appoint his own public health committee, just like he wants to make it legal to run over protesters, make it illegal to protest, just like he wants to pretty much stamp out LGBTQ people from schools. I mean, he wants to completely remake our society. I mean, you look at all these seeds he's planting, and then he is disguising these horrible policies in reasonable sounding rhetoric. Again, there are good reasons to be critical of the CDC. His reasons aren't among them, though. And what he would try to build would be infinitely worse. He's going to just remake this country in a bizarre, theocratic, fascistic image. That's what this guy's looking to do, and he has the competency to do it. I mean, I've been paying attention to politics pretty much my entire adult life. I mean, I jolted awake at the age of 18 when I was a freshman in college, thanks to the Iraq War. Not thanks to the Iraq, but the Iraq War. I wasn't really paying attention to the world around me, and then I kind of wondered. I'm like, why are we in Iraq? This doesn't make any sense. And I read a guy named Noam Chomsky, and then it was off to the races. And I can tell you, I've never seen anything quite like a Ron DeSantis, as far as and hell, there's been a lot of danger. There's been a George W. Bush. That administration was dangerous as hell. And look at what it did. We're still reeling from that administration. Obama, the sweet talking guy who wanted to govern like Reagan, but didn't tell us. Yeah, there's an element of danger to that. You know why? Because that's what helped get us Trump. A bunch of people thought, gee, I thought this progressive guy was going to change things. I guess progressive policies suck. I'll try the Republican again. No, it wasn't progressive policies, though. It was more Reagan. Like this guy was just more Reagan. So now you're going to replace sweet talking Reagan with mean tweeting Reagan. That was where we went. We went from sweet talking Reagan to mean tweeting Reagan, and now we have Rip Van Winkle Reagan. That's where we're at now. Who knows? We'll probably get a variation of Reagan next time too. Who knows? I hope not. You got to hold out. You got to hold out the hope that something decent will happen in the White House. But I kind of feel like we missed our chance with Bernie Sanders, and I don't know when we'll get another one like that. Whenever someone like Bernie Sanders gets as far as he does, and I know yesterday on the show we kind of talked about the Bernie Sanders run, and I think there were definitely some mistakes made, and I would say that there were some things Bernie did that are worthy of criticism. But at the end of the day, despite those mistakes, when someone like Bernie gets as far as they do, it's because someone made a mistake. You know what I mean? They don't want someone like a Bernie Sanders, they being the DNC. They don't want someone like a Bernie Sanders to get as far as he did. So someone messed up. And that's the only way that happens. So it's like the stars have to align. First of all, you need someone who's going to be that much of a firebrand that they're going to just be so loud that we can't be denied. You need that. But you also need a couple things to fall into place where they can't fricking take it from us. So, but I'm not going to stop covering DeSantis because, I see the seeds being planted of this guy having a viable run. And if he becomes president, wow. That is, we'll have never seen anything like it. I can tell you that much. We'll have never seen anything like it. Michael Kapoor, you say Ron DeSantis' moral line is just a few miles behind Guantanamo. Yeah, no kidding. Richard, you say, check out Mike Preisner's reporting on DeSantis participating in detainee torture. Yeah, he laughed about it. I haven't listened to the episode yet, but apparently it's like he's a big fan of torture. He laughs about it because he's a freaking psycho. Yeah. So, but yeah, thanks for the shout out. I really like Mike Preisner's work a lot, and I will listen to that episode of Empire Files. It's a wonderful show that he does with Abby Martin. Joseph, what's up, buddy? Joseph, you say, I used to think Tulsi or Yang could have been the answer. Not anymore, LOL. I was fooled by Tulsi a couple years back. I got to take, I've been taking the L on that one for a couple years. Yeah, I thought that there was a chance that Tulsi could have been that person, if not in 2020 at some point. I no longer feel that way. Now she's just going around promoting MAGA candidates. And Yang, Yang, I never really was on board with Yang, but he had a couple ideas I liked. It's kind of interesting to me. Let me put it this way. Yang, it's interesting to me that Andrew Yang, and again, I'm not like a huge fan of the guy, but it's interesting to me that Andrew Yang, his big thing now is, I have an idea. Let's have a political party with no policy ideas. Hey, Andrew, we already have that. They're called the Democrats. You want a party with no policy ideas and corporate money? We got that. They're called the Democrats. Why would we need another one of those things? But it's interesting to me that Andrew Yang is all about no policy because he's actually had some okay policy ideas. Like when he was running for president, first of all, when he ran for president, the biggest mark he made was about a policy idea, the UBI. That's the only reason like he got as far as he did. Everyone was like, UBI, that's interesting. And he brought UBI into the national conversation, which was cool. I'm glad he did that. I didn't agree with his method for a UBI. I do agree with the UBI as a concept. I don't agree with his method of doing it. But I still think it's cool he brought that into the national conversation. I think that was really cool. He also had the idea for an actual federal journalism fund, which I think was a fantastic idea. Other countries have stuff like that. The United States should too. That's actually a really progressive idea too, by the way. Andrew Yang had that idea. He never even talked about it. He had a bunch of policies on his website. And here's the other interesting thing about the guy. When he ran for mayor of New York, he actually had a really, at least to me, and I'm no expert, but I read his plans, and it was a pretty decent sounding recovery plan that really would have helped out the city. But then he just went like it was just a pro cop campaign at the end. Like he started out with this website that had some good ideas on it, and you're thinking, gee, maybe Andrew Yang would make a decent mayor. I don't agree with the guy on every issue, but dude, mayor's a different animal. It's local politics. Maybe he'd make a great, and then all of a sudden he's just like, we need cops. I love cops. We need more cops. And you're like, what the hell are you doing? So yeah, that guy's, he's an interesting, a bit of an enigma. It's like, hey, I'm gonna promote the idea of no policies, even though I actually have some good policy ideas that I don't want to talk about. And instead, I'd rather overemphasize my bad policy ideas. Here's some bad ideas I have. Here's some good ideas I have. No one will ever know about. But anyway, so let me go ahead and, well, first of all, I'll tell you guys this too before we sign out. Tour dates, I got them in 2023, which is coming up soon. This year went so freaking fast. But January 7th, I will be in San Diego, California. That date got switched around. It was supposed to be February. It's January 7th now. But here's the good news. That's a free show. So if you're thinking, man, I'm broke from New Year's, come hang out with me January 7th in San Diego. It's going to be a fun show. January 28th, I will be in Tucson, Arizona. That show is not just a stand-up show. It's also the premiere screening of my short film, Loner. It's a short film I made that I'm excited for the world to see. And you can see it. Well, first of all, you can see it now if you're a patron. But if you're not a patron, you can see it in Tucson, Arizona on January 28th. And if you're going to that Tucson show, use the promo code Lucy at checkout for discounted tickets. That's a holiday/early bird special. So get your tickets now. Don't wait. February 10th, April 14th, and May 12th, I'll be doing a series of shows in Los Angeles at the Glendale Room. That's a fantastic new space in town. All those shows are Friday nights, and that's a string of shows I'm doing to work on my new hour for 2023. And I'll have some more tour dates coming up very soon. Madison, Wisconsin has been confirmed. Minneapolis, Minnesota has been confirmed. We'll have some more Midwest dates and some UK dates coming up very soon here. So, guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you again, Cat Faye Garrett. Thank you, Chris Garrett. Thank you. Cat Faye Garrett and Chris Garrett, are y'all related? Has anyone ever asked that question? I feel like Garrett is kind of a common name, so there's a good chance that you guys aren't. But are you guys just like Garrett's by coincidence? I never noticed that before, but I'm noticing it now, and I'll notice it all the time. But Cafe Garrett and Chris Garrett, thank you very much for your Super Chat contribution. Observer, thank you so much for your Super Chat contribution. And, of course, everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for your thoughts. Ty's show is coming up at 8 p.m. Eastern. That is the yet-to-be-named show. Maybe he'll call it Winning, ? Who knows? But that's the yet-to-be-named show. So tune in and help him name that show. That's coming up later tonight. Kim will be here tomorrow on Status Coup. And then on Thursday, Tina and myself are back, and we'll have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. And also on Thursday, not only are Tina and I doing the regular show, but we're also doing the members call. That's on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, shortly after the show. So we'll be doing a members call. And if you want to become a member, go to statuscoup.com/join. Now, remember, when you're a member of Status Coup, you're funding on-the-ground journalism. You're funding sending Status Lou on the beat. You're funding sending Tina on the beat, sending Jordan on the beat. That's what you're funding. And then we take that material and we make shows of it in studio. That's what an indie media outlet is supposed to do. And that's what we do here. So that's what you're supporting. And journalism takes resources, folks. It takes travel. It takes money. It takes meals on the road. Believe me, as a road comic who traveled 40 plus weeks a year for a long time, I know how that goes. So if you are able and you want to see independent journalism and independent media continue, please go to statuscoup.com/join. Guys, and of course, for all my tour dates, ronplacone.com. Guys, thank you so much for being here. This has been Ron Placone for Status Coup. I will see you on Thursday. And in the meantime, stay well. See you all next time.